Hey everybody, Coffee with Karen. Click. How's it going today? Sit down, Lucy. I hope you're doing well. I really have to share a story today, and I want your opinion. And I'm pretty sure, it'll be interesting to see if I have mixed reactions from you guys. All I know is my cackles were up about this situation. I think I probably told you, I know I did on my other channel for sure, that I was getting these, had this health report run. It was a urine test, okay? So it's basically like looking at your cells and seeing if there's any deficiency, so you know what kind of supplements to be taking to kind of clean up your cells and stuff like that. So I want to talk about that. And before I do, though, for those of you who haven't seen this mug before, it's pretty basic, right? Yeah. Wait till you see this. So this is how I feel about this health practitioner. Are you ready? Did you see it? I can't really tip it too much because my coffee is in there too much. Ready? I spilled. Okay. Did you see that? First of all, anytime I use this, I'm always like, why would someone have given this away? I got it at Goodwill. Why? Why would someone give this mug away? Okay, do you see? So you're drinking like, have a nice day, and then when you... It's the best. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. So, good opportunity to use it. I'd actually prefer not to use this mug because when I have to use this means like something's going on that's annoying. Anyways, so I had this. Okay, before I get started, let me just tell you, did you guys notice that I'm doing the astrology report, like the predictions report for the day? Yesterday morning, I did it during Coffee with Karen. And last night, I decided I would do it in a separate video for the following day. So I think I'm going to do that. So I'm not going to do it during Coffee with Karen. Okay. Because that kind of makes sense. This way, people who just want the astrology can get it on its own. And then we can just have chit chat. We're just going to chit chat. So, but I do want to talk about, okay, so I want your opinion. I want to share this story about what I feel was very scammy. Okay. And so I want your opinion on that. But I also want to talk about the spiritual aspects of being scammed. I think there are spiritual lessons. Well, there's spiritual lessons in everything, right? There's growth in everything. But I really woke up thinking, what is the spiritual lesson in this? Because I do believe things come into our lives for a reason. Like, I know I don't really say that to people like, oh, it happens for a reason, especially because people will tend to say that when there's a difficult situation going on for somebody. And I don't think if people aren't in the right frame of mind, especially if they're grieving or they're angry or they're emotional, that's not the nice thing to say to somebody, But I can say that for myself. I have no problem saying that for myself. And I have found in my own life that anytime something difficult or even, the good stuff, there's growth in it. There's opportunities to examine things. And so for me, that's why I say, everything happens for a reason type of thing. You know what I mean? And sometimes for me, because I'm a big picture person, it is more helpful to think that there's a reason for things. It almost gives you a little bit of control, thinking the universe has your back type of thing, rather than thinking everything is just random. That is a harder thought for me. So if there are people in your life who always say that, that may be why. I had never even thought about that before. But feeling that there is ultimately some reason for things that come into your life, especially difficult things, seems to be, it's an easier way for some people to deal with those things if they feel like there's some bigger purpose, right? rather than just happenstance. So I hadn't even thought about that before. So let me tell you the story real quick. I'll try to be as succinct as possible. I will read this email that I sent to this person at the end of the story, okay? In case people don't really want to hear the email, but it does give some, anyways, it gives some, it's interesting. Let me put it that way. So anyway, bottom line is I took a urine test. Okay, actually back up, boop, 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 back up a little bit. So I was watching on YouTube, a channel that I really respect, and they had somebody on. They had a health practitioner on, and they had the best conversation. And I was like, oh my gosh! And this woman was like, that she was even talking about the spirituality, some spirituality, not like religion or anything like that, but just had some spiritual perspectives in health and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, I really connect with her. And I was quite interested health-wise of what she was saying, because I always am. I'm always interested in looking at health and how can I, do little tweaks here and there. And I love the idea of taking some kind of non-traditional health, I was going to say exam, but tests basically, to see what exactly is going on in my body, right? Rather than just assuming everybody needs this vitamin and whatever. And in fact, the report came back. So I did get the report. Okay. So the report came back with having a vitamin D deficiency, which is incredible because first of all, I take 4,000 IU a day with K2, plus I'm out in the sun, especially during the summer, at least 2 hours every other day. So without sunscreen, I don't wear sunscreen. So that's incredible to me. So you just don't know, right? And what came out to what's the issue is what I ended up talking to this woman, but I'm going to tell you what her approach was, which in my mind is very scammy and very inappropriate for a health professional, okay, for a health practitioner. And I partly want to share this. I'm not going to share her company specifically, but what I am going to do, and I could, because it's my experience with her, so it wouldn't necessarily be defamation, but I'm not interested in taking her down. I'm more interested in just, hey, if you hire a health professional or practitioner online, and again, I don't think this was an online issue, but I'll tell you some things to watch out for. Let's just put it that way. Because then you'll know if you're running across someone that has her set up, let's just say. Okay. So, because frankly, I'm not interested in driving traffic to her website right now, because you'll want to go and look at it. You know what I mean? If you knew what her website was to see who she is, and you'll just be giving her clicks. I'm like, yeah, no, not interested. Right here. So anyways, yeah, so her and I did end up talking a little bit before I blew up. We did talk for about an hour until I realized I was being scammed. So, or I don't know if scammed is the right word, but my cackles went up, put it that way. Okay, so, but I think it's interesting because there's something in my body that's not absorbing the vitamin D that I need, right? So that's why I love this report, okay? And I'm actually going to take this report and bring it to a real health. I mean, she's a health professional, the woman I met with, but someone who's not trying to scam me. So someone who actually has some ethics. So, and I hope she's watching this because she knows I have a channel. So I told her what my channel was the first time we met. So I hope you're watching this because I do think you need to take a second look at your process, is what I'm saying. So, because it's not moral, it's not ethical, it is disgusting sales tactic, put it that way. Okay, so anyways, all right. So I get this report. Okay, no, okay, so I'm listening on YouTube, right? Really trust the person who is interviewing her because I've been watching them for a long time. And so I was like, cool, I'll go to her website and sign up for an appointment. Now, the appointment, this will always be your first clue. And there was a little bit like, I was like, okay, well, we'll see. When she offered a free appointment to discuss your needs, that right there is one, it's not a red flag, but it should be a yellow flag. Okay. And it was for me, it was a yellow flag. So she offered a free appointment, but I thought, you know what? I just heard her talk for an hour and a half. I feel very comfortable with this, right? But when someone offers a free appointment, there is something that they want to talk to you about that's going to cost more money, or it's going to cost money. And I knew that. I would never expect to go into a health practitioner's office and say, give me everything for free. I mean, I wouldn't do that. So I knew, I had no idea how much, but I knew that there was something that she would be selling me, right? And which is fine. That's her service. She's educated. She's got the credentials. Okay. So we met, and she said that she went through kind of like this was my second clue that didn't feel extremely authentic. Okay. So I'm already paying attention. All right. That she kind of went through a PowerPoint presentation, which was a bit salesy. Let me just tell you that. It was a little bit salesy. Okay. But I'm like, okay, she's just educating. It wasn't educating. It was a little bit, but it was salesy. It was like picture of her and he, and look at me and look at now how I look now. She doesn't need to do all that. If she is authentically trying to heal people, she doesn't. So you know where this is leading. She wants me to buy something pretty big. Okay. But I'm going to tell you how, not this first time around, she's not. So I'm going to tell you how this was quite deceiving. Okay. So if she, we had an appointment, and yes, she wanted to know all my issues. And so she was, so it wasn't all about her. Okay. And so that was good, as it should be. The whole thing should have been about me, So anyway, so she had this PowerPoint presentation. At the end of that, it was like, well, the next thing we can do is this urine test. And with the urine test is a consult with her. Okay. So in a traditional sense, it is standard practice. And in my experience and any of my friends' experiences, you'll have to tell me if it's not standard practice for you, that when you take a test, that the person would then give you the results of the test and give you their recommendations based on that test. That was my expectation. Okay. So she said it'll be a urine test and we'll have an hour meeting. That's part of the price. So it's $525. I'm like, great. That's fine. I have no problem with that. That seems reasonable. So I'm like, okay. So the fact that it was a free appointment at that point, I thought, great. I'm going to get these recommendations of what I need. I'm going to get the health report, which I did from a separate company. So she, now it does make me question that report, to be honest, a little bit. This whole but I did sign up an account with this company, this lab company, got the report from them. Okay. She also got the report. She told me that a doctor would review the report, and if they had any concerns, they would call me directly. She said that specifically, and that we would review the report. And in my mind, I don't remember specifically, she probably just said, we'll review the report, right? But so you know how the law works? If a reasonable adult would expect, based on standard practices in a field, that you would get recommendations that were specific to you based on this urine test, you would expect that, right? So I did. There's no doubt. I mean, I had no reason not to. if she would have told me up front that in order to get her okay, this is where it goes. In order to get her specific recommendations for me, I got the report and like each of the things said like, oh, vitamin whatever would help here. Vitamin whatever would help here, but not specifically how much and how often. In order for me to do that, okay, she wants me to buy this huge program. Okay. So I'm going to tell, like, in order for me to get her specific recommendations. So the thing is, okay, so she spends this hour going through this report. And, you know, during the time, like, I am very open-minded to people's approach unless, you know, for a while. It takes me a little while. Like, I'm very, I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you a chance. I did find while she was doing that report, one, she wasn't listening very well. Like she was just plowing through the report. Okay. Well, I could read the report. I honestly did not. And they had recommendations at the end, not specific recommendations for how much I needed, which the report should do. There's no reason why not. So, but she wasn't like, I was trying to engage her, you know, like if I had questions or whatever, and she answered a few, but she really wanted it. She didn't really, and now I know why, because she didn't want to have to answer the specifics for me, right? So right after she's done reading the report, she didn't say, you know, oh, she did say, oh, so, because we were talking about the carnivore diet, and she said, which was fine. It was great. She said, well, so how has that been going for you? What kind of healing have you had? And so I told her, and I was really excited about it. So then and then she immediately went into a slideshow, and I'm like, what? I mean, so she starts going into this. It doesn't even say at the top of the presentation, like, it doesn't say like program. She starts going into this slideshow as if she is teaching me about health. Okay. And first of all, personally, especially looking back, I found that very condescending because first of all, she makes huge assumptions that people don't know about health. And she made huge assumptions that, you know, like, just part of the, like her program. I mean, she was like, you know, like, well, you have to clean out the toxins in your house. I'm like, okay, first of all, why don't you ask if I have toxins in my house? Like, I'm like, you know what? I probably have more experience than she does in this, is how I felt. You know what I mean? Even though I don't have the letters behind my name, you know? So it was quite condescending, like part of that. And anyway, so she starts going into this presentation, right? And I'm like, I can start to see what's happening at that point. And now my trust level is like gone. And now, okay, I'm an Aries and I do not bite my tongue. I just don't. I can't help it. I could have just, you know, but I said, wait a minute. Okay, so she gets to this thing. She puts this QR code up on the thing. There's no even like price. Like, it's just so effing shady. It's just effing shady, you know? She puts this price up and then she says, this is really condescending. She's like, okay, so there are people who work with me. Okay, so she's not even like using the word program yet. Okay, people who work with me. At least she may have used it, but my cackles are up at this point. So I can't even, like, you know, when you start to get like, what the hell's going on here? You can't even hear anything anymore. You know what I mean? And you start to hear what you're just like, you just can't hear anymore, you know? But I did hear this, and she's like, oh, so people who I work with, we can put them into 3 categories. We're going to give them a grade A, B, and C. Okay. But you can know where this is going. A, they are into it. They're going to take charge of themselves. They have no problem. Okay. Then B people, you know, they fall off the wagon. They need some support. But then there's C, and they do something and They just stop doing it. And they don't even tell you why they stop doing it. Now, which one are you? And I'm just like, oh, I don't know. And maybe it's just my own life experience. But when you're talking to a 56-year-old, it's one thing to talk to an 18-year-old like that. And honestly, I worked with 18-year-olds for 30 years. I never talked to them like that. Ever. Ever. I would go over their options with them, but it was so effing condescending. Sorry. I'm feeling very, very emotional about this. Not emotional, but just... Anyways, okay. So I then say to her, wait a minute. Okay, so, let's get to my recommendations, right? So now I just spent another 15, 20 minutes listening to her frickin' sales pitch. Didn't give me an option to listen to the sales pitch, by the way. No option. Didn't tell me at the beginning of the sales pitch it was a program we were even talking about. She went into like health as if it was part of the conversation, Totally shady. So basically the end of that ended with me saying, wait a minute. And then and I said, so, where's my, I'm waiting for the plan, basically. When are we going to get to the plan? And she's like, oh, well, I can't give that to you until we were working together. I'm like, what? You're not going to give me specific recommendations based on this urine test? And so bottom line is, I ended up saying that's very deceiving. I feel very deceived. And she continued to just say, I just spent an hour with you going over the report, which I'm thinking, F you, lady. I got the report. I uploaded it into AI, by the way, the minute I got it. And AI gave me recommendations, specific recommendations. And I wanted to obviously, we don't know yet about AI and these kind of things. So I wanted to double check and make sure that, I was like curious. Oh, will AI give me these same recommendations, that she gave me? So F you, lady. Nobody needs your frickin' consult. Some people might, but I'm going to tell you why this is a huge issue. A huge issue. She's completely taking advantage of people who are sick. I'm telling you that right now. She's taken advantage of people who are sick, and it is completely unethical, in my opinion. And my sister's the one who actually called her on that. And I'll, tell you that real quick. So I ended up, she just, like, she didn't even want to hear you have to. And I said, I can't be the only one who's ever told you this. Of course I was, by the way, but she was so defensive right away that there's like, if it were me, like if it was the first time I'd heard this, I would have been like, oh, well, let me explain a little bit. Like, so maybe you misunderstood, but no, she was like, well, I went over the whole, she, now that I think back at it, like you can tell she was ready for it. You know what I mean? So I'm like, bullshit that I was the only person that's ever said that to her, So anyway, so she kept doing that. So I just hung up because I'm like, I just wasted so much time. And not to mention, I was so disappointed. Because I had waited 2 weeks to get the results back. I plugged in the report 2 weeks ago into AI, but I was like, well, I'm not going to take the AI recommendations because I just don't know, right? And but so I was like, really excited for 2 weeks to get this going, So I was like bawling. I'm like, I was so upset. My husband came over and he's like, because he had kind of heard me, because I clicked off. He thought I had said to her, this is effing bullshit, or this is bullshit, effing bullshit. But I don't think I did. I might have said it to her. I don't think so. I think I hung up and said, that's effing bullshit, So anyways, anybody have this kind of experience before? I've never had this kind of experience before with a health practitioner. So anyways, talked to my husband. He calmed me down. Called my sister, of course, Marcia. And so her first thing after she heard me and listened to me and stuff, her biggest concern, which she's so right about this, her biggest concern is that people who are really ill, like I'm not really ill, I was just doing it for extra support for my body, to see what I'm missing. But people who are really ill, and she does do carnivore, this woman too, which I connected with. Okay. And so just know she's in the carnivore community. So that's another hint for you. But she doesn't just work with people who are in the carnivore community, but people who are really ill will feel like when they get to her $4,300 program for 6 months, which again, I have no problem paying for something if she would have told me up front, like, okay, we're going to do this urine test. We're going to have a consult about it. You're not going to get specific recommendations from me. And then if you want to join the program, then I will work with you to give you the specific recommendations. But would you do a urine test if somebody said to you, but I'm not going to give you recommendations unless you do this $4,300 program? No, you would not, which is why she did not say that up front. Okay. So of course, my sister is a CFO and very logical and has lots of experience in the business world. Okay. So she's like, well, first of all, look back at your emails and find out if your email said anything about like you're not getting specific, you have to buy this program to get the recommendations. Okay. So I didn't even bother with that because I decided to put her email. So she did send me an email. She sent me an email afterwards. Very professional, but very defensive. And in fact, I uploaded her email to AI to see I said, how would you interpret this? And the AI said defensive. I didn't even give AI like any background or anything, but AI said defensive. So then I told AI what I wanted to say back to her, and AI formulated this beautiful email, very professional, not emotional, because I was extremely emotional about it. I had started writing the email. Actually, I wrote the email. It was very emotional, blaming, irritated with her, and then I plugged my email into AI with hers and said, help me formulate a response. And then I kept teasing it out a little bit with AI. So it got to a response that I wanted. Okay. And it was perfect. It ended up really good. So she did send me, I am going to read you for those. I know this is a long story but let's actually go before I read you the letters. Let's go to the spiritual aspect about this, because the biggest I want to know what you guys think in terms of what do you get out of a situation like this, spiritual growth wise? Because there's two things for me. Now we're all going to handle it differently, right? There's two things for me is standing in your power. So now I've always been a little bit like this, but I do have a hard time standing in my power without being emotional, because she wasn't like open to hearing me. So then because she was pushing back and I'm like, she wasn't even, she knew what she was doing. So it was very manipulative. And so then when I was emotional about it, like the way she acted got me even more angry. So then when I got angry, that's why I had to hang up on her. I'm like, if I don't hang up on you, I will, say many things I regret at this point. So I was like, click, I'm not wasting any more time. So really standing in your power. Okay. And I think with all the scamming that's going on, and we don't know who to trust anymore, right? I know it's been hard, and there's been like this evolution of this, and especially with our government right now, not knowing who to trust. It's just our eyes are getting more open, that I think these bullshitters like this, and I don't give a crap if this is marketing and sales tactics. I don't care. It's scummy. And I think going in, that is a 3D approach, let's just say. So this person who says she's a spiritual person, fine, but she's living in the 3D. She's living in the 3D. So I would rather never help anyone if I had to try to sell somebody something like that way. Very deceptive, So as I think we are going to keep seeing this kind of stuff, to help us stand in our power and say, no more. We're not putting up with these sales tactics anymore. This happened to my husband and I last summer. And of course, I called bullshit on it to these people right to their faces. I couldn't help it. So there was a car dealership and we drove out. They said, okay, so there was hail damage on this car and the car was priced really good. But they told us that the hail damage was, there was nothing visible on the car, right? That's what they told us and we drove an hour to go see this car. We get there and the entire roof is full of hail damage. The first thing the guy says to me is, well, I got other cars. And I'm like, where is your manager? I mean, I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, you guys lied to us to get us here so you could try to sell us another car. I mean, I can't let that shit go. I'm not going to just go, okay, thank you. Bye. Anyways, that's just me. I can't. So, we got to start calling them. We got to start calling them out on their crap. It's bullshit. And especially people who, again, she is preying on people who are ill. And they're probably like, well, you're my last chance to get healthy. Because she already, part of her slideshow was to show how unreliable traditional medicine is. So she's already got you brainwashed, which, we know part of that, but she's already, you see what I mean? Like the manipulation of that. And then someone who's really ill is going to pay $4,300, whether they can or not, because they feel like that's their only way of getting better. Sorry, I don't know. I'll have to do it. I should do a trigger warning on this video. This is kind of a weird Coffee with Karen, but this is what Coffee with Karen's all about. This is the experience I had. So annoying. So, yeah, so what other spiritual things, you guys? I just think we're going to be seeing more and more of the 3D crap. So just keep that in mind. I think that's where maybe we need to just keep talking when we see 3D crap in our own lives. And then how are we shifting to 5D? Because it's not my responsibility to shift her. She ain't going to shift. She had a standard. Her response back was, it was very professional, which is fine. It's good. But, so yeah. So what do you guys think in terms of like, is this, am I seeing it more? I'm not sure, but I'm certainly dealing with it differently than I would have 10, 20 years ago. You know what I mean? In terms of like, it's not that I ever accepted it, and I have always called people out if I feel like there's something that I'm being scammed, basically. If I see a disservice or something, that I do this with other people too. Like, I can't help it. It's just part of my DNA. If I see somebody is being mistreated, I'm like the first one to be like, hey, I can't help. Sometimes I wish I could. And like, everybody's different. Like, my husband is not the first one to jump in on things at all. He's more of like, F you in his head, and he walks away. You know what I mean? Not me. Sometimes it would be better if I was. Because I don't always get it right either. I'm not saying I'm always right, So anyway, so what do you guys think about that from a spiritual perspective? Okay, so if you want to hear the letters, I'm going to read these now. Okay, so she wrote, "Hi, Karen. I'm sorry to hear that you feel disappointed with your report of findings and consultation." She called it a consultation. "This is the first time I've encountered this type of concern." Okay, well, maybe she actually hasn't been in practice for long. I didn't ask her how long she'd been in practice. So, and I do know she used to sell pharmaceuticals. So that was her background. So I'd like to take a moment to clarify the purpose and scope of the session. Oh, do you think you could have clarified that in the first meeting? Now she's clarifying the purpose and the scope of the session, but not in the first meeting. Okay. So blah, blah, blah. She says, okay, so, this process is designed to give you both clarity and insight into your body's needs, as well as an outline what the next steps could be if you decide to move forward. Oh, I'm just going to take a urine test and then not decide to move forward with it. Yep, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a urine test and not decide to move forward with it. So if I decide to move forward with it, okay? Okay, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. So she goes into I do want you to walk away with value. So I'm attaching a general supplement guide for cellular health, which is great because I uploaded that to AI for a little bit more AI specific recommendations. So got that out of her at least. This guide outlines key nutrients that play an important role in supporting your body at the foundational level. Fine. Please note, okay, so it's not a diagnosis. Okay. Then she says, this is her last line, I also want to acknowledge that I spent well over an hour with you on our call. Oh, thank you. Because I spent well over an hour with you on the call too. And I paid for it. I completely respect that. No, she said, oh, sorry. She spent well over an hour with me on the call, being thorough in reviewing your results and providing education. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I can't help it. It's so condescending. My intention has always been to empower you with knowledge and options, not to mislead you in any way. Thank you. If you feel that a structured one-on-one program isn't right for you, yeah, I have no problem. I expected to, after this meeting, to get the plan, and I expected to pay her hourly like you would with any other practitioner. I just didn't know it was going to be a $4,300 program, which she's going over, which is fine. I don't mind the $4,300 program if she would have told me that up front. I have no problem with that. But now I have no way of moving forward with her unless I pay $4,300. So I don't even have the option of paying her hourly, and that's my problem. So she completely respects that the program might not be right for me at this time. But I do hope you'll take what you've learned about your biomarkers and make use of the guide I've provided. Wishing you clarity and health. Okay, so here's my letter back to her. This was, I think, I was just so happy, you guys. If I would have had AI, this is how one way you can really effectively use AI is to help you be really clear in your communication. Now, remember, AI didn't write the whole thing for me. I wrote it very emotionally. AI helped me tighten it up, and then I wanted to make these points, so AI helped me clarify. Okay, you're inputting that, okay? So, and obviously you don't send something unless that's what you mean to say. So you then decide, right? That's the discernment when using AI. Okay, so I said, well, thank you for your response. I would like you to provide any documentation or information from our first meeting that indicated the only way I would receive personalized supplement recommendations based on my lab results was by enrolling in a $4,000 program. When we met, my reasonable expectation, based on standard practice in this field, was that paying for lab work and a consult would include actionable, personalized recommendations. This is the industry norm when labs are ordered through a practitioner. Instead, what I received was an educational review of biomarkers, followed immediately by a high-ticket program pitch. Even when you go to have you ever been to a timeshare pitch? Been to a lot of them. My sister and I were talking about that yesterday, because that's why both of us sit pretty in our finances, because we used to be very frugal. So we would do these timeshare pitches. I never could do one again. I've done too many of them when I was younger. Anyways, at least you know what you're getting when you walk in there. You know what they're going to do. Not this woman. Okay, so Okay, so sorry. This is the industry norm when labs are ordered through a practitioner. Instead, what I received was an educational review of biomarkers, followed immediately by a high-ticket program pitch. The distinction you are drawing between an educational review and an individualized treatment plan was never disclosed up front, which is the core issue. What felt most concerning was the way this unfolded. The consult moved directly from results into a $4,000 sales pitch without you asking if I even wanted to hear about it. The approach removes the client's agency, and in my view, it is not in line with professional ethics, especially in a healthcare context. I want you to know that I came into this with every intention of sending friends and family your way if the process went well, which is true. I was going to ask her, I said I even considered asking whether you had an affiliate program because I was so hopeful about what you were offering, because I was going to talk about it with you guys, because I know I've mentioned it several times. Unfortunately, this experience left me feeling misled, and that trust has been lost. I also want to point out that while you noted the time you spent with me, you did not acknowledge the time I invested. 2 weeks of waiting with excitement, preparation for our call, and then sitting through a process that ultimately did not deliver what I was led to expect. That was also wasted time, and it matters. I want to be clear, I am not dissatisfied simply because I did not purchase a program. My concern is about transparency and business ethics. I would have had no objection to paying for additional sessions as part of the healing process had I been given the option. Instead, I was funneled into a pre-scripted sale path without choice. My greatest concern is not for myself. I can afford your program. My concern is for people who come to you desperate and sick, who may feel they have no option but to commit to a high-ticket program they cannot realistically afford. This is where the lack of disclosure becomes most harmful. If you are unable to provide documentation that I agree to this arrangement, I will have no choice but to dispute the charge with my credit card company. So my sister helped me with like that part. And plus she was the one who said that her biggest concern was how people are being used, like, desperate people, and I thought that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about those. So those both came from my sister. So then she wrote me back and she gave me a refund. And even just like her response back was, even I sent it to my sister and she's like, oh yeah, she said you can tell that she has experienced this before, is really how it felt. So she wrote back, I appreciate the time we spent together and the opportunity to review your results. In functional wellness, the process always begins with uncovering the root causes. No effing shit. Again, if you're talking to an 18-year-old, but and I've even told her that I've been doing this, like, having a lot of experiences with this, right? So this was a very canned response. And from there, a plan is developed if you choose to move forward. Who would do a urine test if you didn't choose to move forward? Who would you? Would you do a urine test? If you're like, okay, well, again, I already said it. I'm going to do a urine test. I'm going to pay $525 and get nothing for it. And this cracks me. Okay, so anyway, so she goes on, whatever. In your consultation, I provided the root causes, issues of your symptoms. And blah, blah. Okay. So, and then, okay. Creating meaningful change. So now she's telling me what creates meaningful change. Also requires attention to mindset, biohacks, lifestyle changes, diet, addressing the nervous system, and more. Since this cannot be delivered in a 1-hour consultation, bullshit, it can't. Yes, it can. Again, I don't have a problem with her program, but this is awful. It's awful. So anyway, so then she says the initial lab fee you paid for is already applied to the program investment. Yeah. Okay. I love that. Okay. So anyway, she gave me a refund for her time. It was $214. I got a refund for that. Okay. She tells me in this email, okay, in her PowerPoint, at the end of the PowerPoint, part of the program was going to be the next test, the next urine test. So that was going to be included, $300 basically. Okay. That was going to be included. Now in this email, she says, Oh, I was going to tell you that your previous urine test is included, but I didn't get a chance to at the end of the meeting, because I basically hung up on her. It wasn't even a part of the PowerPoint program. So she's totally lying again. She's lying again. If that was the case, it would have been on her outline. I'm paying for this urine test and the next one. It would have been a part of the outline, but it was not. It was not. So, anyways, I know this was a long one. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for listening to me. I hope that wasn't too boring for you. Click. All right, you guys. I appreciate your support. Mostly, though, I think it's helpful for us as we see more and more 3D crap coming out, is that we keep talking about it, because these are the cracks, right? These are all the cracks, and all the 3D stuff is gonna. So, she's not open to seeing it. At least not in her email, she not. I hope she changes her ways because of my interaction with her. I hope she does. It's not, I don't care. It's not my problem, because she'll be staying in the 3D. I'll tell you that, if she's going to keep this crap up. And it's really sad because she does have the credentials, and based on this podcast interview and my first meeting with her, I thought, okay, this is great, but so she doesn't even need to do all this kind of stuff. She doesn't need to do it. But she has learned to be a sleazy salesperson somehow. Somebody has taught her to do this, either from her pharmaceutical experience, but somebody, and I don't know who, but somebody has taught her. Because I used to be in this kind of like teaching people how to do small business. So I know there are programs out there that teach people how to do this slimy stuff. I know that because I've seen it. See, she doesn't know that, because she takes for granted that everybody doesn't have experience. I think every once in a while on this channel, I can come off condescending, and I actually recognize it in myself. Okay. And I try really, really hard not to. I try to really, really hard not to assume that anybody doesn't have more experience than I do with whatever I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And I even did that with 18-year-olds. I mean, they had more experience than me, and we don't, even 5-year-olds have different experiences that we don't experience. So we don't treat them with condescension and manipulation, All right, I better stop. It's already 47 minutes. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you today. Oh, today. What are we doing today? At 2:00. What's going on at 2:00? I can't even remember. But I'll see you for the energy report tonight. Okay, talk to you later. Bye-bye.